Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive? You ever get that feeling like you're totally alone in your faith?
Oh, yeah.
Like you're climbing a mountain without any gear or teammates?
Yep.
Today, we're looking at a sermon that hits on that exact feeling. You know? It says that Christianity, it's not a solo sport. It's like a team effort.
Interesting. All the way, yeah.
And the sermon, it dives right into the Bible to make that point.
Okay.
Starts with those key verses like in Mark 16.1, Matthew 28.18020 about, going out and making disciples.
Right.
The foundation of spreading the message is all about working together.
That's a good point. And it's interesting, the sermon points out that even Jesus, when he sent out his disciples, he didn't send them out alone.
He didn't.
In Mark 6.7, he sends them out in pairs. I always thought of mentorships or accountability partners as a modern thing,
Right.
But the idea of having someone alongside you in your faith, it goes way back. Oh, yeah, definitely. And the sermon, it makes the point that it wasn't just random pairing them up. It was about support, keeping each other on track and celebrating together,
Makes sense.
Yeah. Imagine those early disciples trying to handle everything alone.
It would be rough.
No one to lean on, no one to share the burden.
Okay, so having a buddy system, it's a good idea.
Uh-huh.
But the sermon, it goes deeper than that, right?
It does, yeah.
Connects this teamwork idea to, something I really get. That feeling of strength when you're part of a community.
Oh, absolutely. The sermon even asks, and I bet we've all wondered this, doesn't being with other believers, doesn't that give you more confidence to stand up for Christ?
It's true.
Like when you're with people who share your values, facing challenges feels a little less scary.
That's a good point. It makes me think about times when I haven't been as, vocal about my faith because I was worried what people would think.
Yeah, I've been there.
But then when I'm with my church group or even just a couple of close Christian friends, that fear just disappears.
It's amazing, isn't it? That shift you're talking about, it's powerful.
It is.
And it's something the writer of Hebrews mentions too in chapter 10, verses 24 and 25. It's like he's saying, yep, you need your own connection with God, but don't forget about being part of a community. One that lifts you up, challenges you.
It's funny because sometimes I think we can get so focused on the me and Jesus part, we forget about the us part.
Right.
But this sermon, it really emphasizes that God created us to live in community for a reason.
He did.
It's not just about socializing. It's woven into how we should live out our faith.
That's right. And the sermon even says community isn't just about how it makes us feel.
Yeah.
It's about how it allows us to act, how the world sees us, and how our love for each other, it's like a real tangible expression of our faith.
That's an interesting thought. So we're not just talking about support, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about community as a force for good, a way to show our faith.
Exactly. And the sermon brings up that powerful statement from John 13.34-35, where Jesus tells his disciples, love one another like I've loved you, love each other. That's how everyone will know you're my disciples.
Powerful.
It's not about miracles or knowledge. It's about loving each other.
Okay, I see that. But how does teamwork actually help us do that better?
That's where the sermon gets into this beautiful idea of unity and diversity.
Right.
It draws from Ephesians 4.6, reminding us that God's plan was to bring everyone together, Jews, Gentiles, as one body, sharing in the amazing gift of being his children.
I love that. It's the opposite of how our world works,
It is.
where we focus on what divides us.
Yeah.
But the sermon is saying that in faith, our differences, they make us stronger.
They do. They're part of what makes it beautiful.
Absolutely. And it reminds me of something the sermon mentioned about a pastor in the Cayman Islands.
Oh, yeah.
Leading this super diverse church, international, all these different cultures, languages, backgrounds, all worshiping together.
It's a perfect example, isn't it?
It is.
Of how this teamwork thing isn't about being the same, fitting into a little box.
Yeah.
It's about finding harmony in our differences and using them to build something special.
That's a good way to put it. It leads perfectly into the next point the sermon makes.
Yeah.
Finding your own unique place in this whole thing.
Yes.
In the body of Christ.
It's about figuring out where your skills, your talents can best serve the community.
It's like that analogy of the body with all its parts, right?
Yes.
So,
the sermon mentions 1 Corinthians 12, which paints this picture of a hand, a foot, an ear.
each part has a role.
Every part is vital. And just like in our bodies, not every part's meant to be the head or the heart,
Right.
but every single one is important.
That's so important because I think It's easy to compare ourselves and feel inadequate if we don't have the same gifts as someone else.
It is, yeah.
But the sermon reminds us that God cares about our significance more than our prominence.
He does.
It's not about the spotlight. It's about knowing that every role, every little thing we do matters.
That's it.
Speaking of finding your place, the sermon had this funny bit about people who definitely shouldn't be on the worship team.
Oh, I remember that.
It was funny, but it made me think about how important it is to know your strengths, your weaknesses, find where you can really contribute, not just where you think you should be.
Exactly. Being honest with ourselves, recognizing that sometimes the best things we can do are behind the scenes.
Supporting others.
Right. Using our gifts in ways that might not be flashy, but are still so valuable.
So we've got this idea that teamwork in the Christian life, it's essential.
Yeah.
It gives us support, builds confidence, and lets us express our faith through love.
It does.
But the sermon doesn't stop there, right? It talks about some of the things that can trip us up in this whole team dynamic.
Oh, yeah, for sure. One of the big ones it talks about is the temptation to compare ourselves to others.
Oh, I know that one.
Which can lead to jealousy and, well, just mess up the whole community.
I've totally been there. It's like back in school when you had a group project and you see someone who's just naturally good at it. You feel like you're going to drag everyone down.
You feel like you're not enough.
Yeah, it's easy to get stuck comparing yourself, doubting yourself.
And the sermon makes the point that kind of thinking, it helps the enemy win, you know?
It does.
Instead of working together, we start competing, focusing on what we think we lack instead of celebrating what we've got.
So how do we fight that? The sermon, it must have some ideas about how to get past these things, right?
Well, one of the key things it brings up is going back to that idea of the disciples being sent out in pairs. Having someone with you walking the same path, it gives you support, but also accountability.
Oh, I see what you mean. It's like a teammate who can, I don't know, call you out when you start thinking negatively.
Right. Someone to remind you of your strengths.
To keep you in your lane, so to speak.
Exactly. It's about having that safe place to be honest about your struggles, your doubts.
Knowing you won't be judged.
Exactly. But you'll be supported.
Challenged to grow.
Yep. And it reminds me of that story in Acts chapter 19, verses 13 through 16, about the sons of Sceva.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to use Jesus' name to cast out demons, but they didn't have a real relationship with him.
Didn't end well for them.
Nope. Their faith was all show, no substance.
It shows you can't just ride on someone else's faith. You need your own connection to Christ.
You do. You can't fake it. It really can't. You can't rely on other people's strength or try to borrow someone else's connection.
That's so true.
It has to come from you, you know?
Yeah. Your own relationship with Christ.
That's it.
It makes me think sometimes we can get caught up defining our faith by what we're against rather than what we're for.
That's interesting.
The sermon, I had this funny story about someone. When asked what they believed, they could only say what they didn't do.
Oh, wow.
Like so focused on what they were against, they didn't even know what they stood for.
It's easy to fall into that trap, you know, especially these days. It's all us versus them.
It is.
But real strength, it comes from knowing what you believe, why you believe it, and how that shapes your actions.
It's like building a house on solid ground versus on stilts.
Exactly.
If your faith isn't grounded in your own beliefs, it's going to crumble when things get tough.
It will. And the sermon, it doesn't just leave us with those big ideas.
Yeah.
It actually tells us what to do. It says, find your place to serve in the church.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes serving can feel overwhelming, like you need some big, impressive talent.
Oh, yeah.
But this sermon, it's saying it's not about being perfect or having it all figured out.
Not at all.
It's about taking that first step.
Just being willing to contribute wherever you are.
That's the beauty of this teamwork thing, isn't it?
It is.
There's room for everyone.
Everyone. And even if you don't see the perfect fit right away, the sermon says, start somewhere.
Okay, yeah.
There are always needs to be met, you know, things to do, people to love.
Makes you think how many times we miss chances to serve, just waiting for the perfect role.
It's true.
Maybe it's about being open to what's right in front of us.
I think you're right. It's about saying yes, even when you're not sure, even when you don't feel ready.
I like that.
You often discover things about yourself, talents you didn't even know you had.
That's a good point. It makes me think of Paul. In his letters, he always thanked the people he worked with.
He did.
It's like a reminder that teamwork isn't just doing your own thing.
Yeah.
It's valuing what everyone brings to the table.
It's true. We can get so focused on our own stuff, we forget to appreciate the people around us.
The ones who make our own work possible.
Exactly. It's like a sports team. You have the star player scoring the winning goal, but they couldn't do it without the whole team.
The assists, the blocks, the practices.
Right. Every part matters.
Every little bit of encouragement, appreciation, it all helps build a strong team.
Absolutely.
This whole deep dive, it's really shifted my perspective.
Oh, yeah.
We often think of faith as this solo journey.
Right. You're on your own.
Climbing this mountain alone. But this sermon, it's like, no, we climb together.
We do. Supporting each other every step of the way.
Powerful image. And it reminds us we don't have to have all the answers, be some spiritual expert.
You don't.
We just have to be willing to contribute, use whatever gifts we have.
And trust God will use it.
Exactly. And that's what's so cool about teamwork. It's for everyone.
It is.
You don't need special skills, just a willing heart.
Just a desire to be part of something bigger.
And in this case, that something bigger, it's spreading the gospel, sharing God's love.
It is. Building a community where everyone feels welcome, supported.
Empowered to really live out their faith.
That's it.
But it's not just about words, right?
Yeah,
It's about how we live, how we treat each other, how we show up for our community.
Actions speak louder.
They do. The way we treat each other shows our faith.
Absolutely.
So what now? We talked about a lot.
Yeah.
How do we actually do something with this?
That's the question, isn't it? It's easy to talk about it, but how do we put it into action?
The sermon says teamwork is key for discipleship.
It does. So what can you, the listener, do this week to be a better teammate?
That's a great question. It's easy to get lost in the theory, but the real test is doing something.
It is. Maybe it's reaching out to someone who's feeling alone.
Okay.
Maybe volunteering your time for something you believe in, or just making an effort to appreciate the people around you, noticing what they do, celebrating their wins.
It's about moving from just watching to actually doing something.
Yes. Using teamwork to make our faith stronger, build community.
And make a difference.
Exactly.
But it's not about being perfect, right?
Yep.
It's about making progress.
Every little step towards being a better teammate, it brings us closer to fulfilling what Christ asked us to do.
Together.
Together.
It's like we've got all these amazing tools to build something great together,
Yeah.
but we get so intimidated. You know,
I do, yeah.
We forget to actually start building.
That's a good way to put it. Like, we're looking at the blueprints for this amazing cathedral.
Oh, yeah.
All the details, the arches.
But we're too scared to lay the first block.
We don't think we're good enough.
Exactly. But when you think about those cathedrals, they weren't built by one person.
No way.
It was generations of people all working together,
sharing their skills, their vision.
to create something bigger than themselves.
And that's what makes this whole idea of teamwork in our faith so exciting, I think.
It is.
We don't have to be these, like, super spiritual people
Right.
to make a difference. Just be willing to show up.
Use your gifts
However small you think they are.
and trust God will use them.
He will. It reminds me of that Mother Teresa quote.
Oh, yeah.
Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love.
That's beautiful. It reminds us that even the smallest things we do, they matter.
They do. That listening ear for a friend, helping a stranger.
A kind word at the right time,
Those little things add up.
like weaving a tapestry.
Exactly. Of love, compassion, strength.
And the more we work as a team, the more we realize that what we do, it's all connected.
What? It is, yeah. Like a puzzle.
Each piece matters.
And when we come together, that's when we see the whole picture.
The full picture.
And that picture, it's God's kingdom.
Here on earth.
A community of love, unity, people making the world better.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into teamwork in the Christian life, what's the one thing you hope people take away?
The message is simple. We're not meant to go it alone in our faith.
We need each other.
We're called to be a team, support each other, challenge each other.
Work towards that same goal.
To show God's love to the world.
Build bridges.
Create communities where everyone feels valued.
And empowered to live out their faith.
Exactly. So go out there, be a teammate, find your place, use your gifts.
And work together for something bigger than yourselves.
That's it.